I possess an affair detection system and am busy every day looking for the lovers kept by various big shots and domineering CEOs. I once became a favored guest among wealthy wives. The sisters also said to me, "You're never at home since you just got married. You should keep your husband in check. There's hardly a man who doesn't cheat. If he betrays you, I'll introduce my younger brother to you." I always declined with a smile, just because of the childhood friendship between Lucas and me. When I was handling affairs for Amelia, I found out that the lover of her husband in an arranged marriage was two-timing, and Lucas was one of them. He even said to his lover, "I don't even want to touch her when I see her greasy look." I then got together with William, Amelia's younger brother, but Lucas went crazy begging me to come back. "Miss Amelia, I'll help you check the location of Mr. Henry's lover right now." I activated the system and retrieved the videos of the lovers and projected them onto the screen of my mobile phone. Many men appeared in the video footage. Some were in luxurious hotel suites, some were in hamburger shops, and others were in gyms. All of these men were cheating. However, that gym looked especially familiar to me, so I paused for a while. In the video, the two people were doing normal butt and leg exercises. I thought there was something wrong with the system and was just about to click to switch when suddenly, the scene changed. The man was helping the woman relax her muscles. But at this time, the woman's hand had already stroked the man's abdominal muscles, and the man's hand was simultaneously placed on the woman's buttocks. The ambiguous atmosphere between the two reached its peak. I froze when I saw the mole on the man's neck. I already had a vague answer in my heart. But the man's face had always been blurry. Then the scene changed again. The two people left the gym one after the other. The woman changed into a black maid outfit and sat on the bed waiting for the man. The man just walked out of the bathroom with his hair still wet and was about to pounce on the woman. At this moment, I finally saw the man's face clearly. This man turned out to be my newlywed husband, Lucas. My heart involuntarily tightened, my brows furrowed unconsciously, my nails dug deep into my flesh, and my breathing became rapid. I still wanted to keep watching. Amelia beside me immediately grabbed my arm and shook it when she saw this, looking worried. "Diana, why don't we take a break and watch later? That little vixen won't run away for a while. As for this man..." She paused halfway through her sentence and looked at me meaningfully. Amelia knew what my husband looked like, and I had accidentally revealed our childhood friendship in front of her. She always envied our relationship instead of her own business marriage. But now, I ended up catching my own husband while helping others catch cheaters. I forced a smile and said goodbye to her. "I may need to deal with my own personal affairs. I'll come back to handle your affairs in a couple of days." "I'm really sorry." She nodded understandingly, and then thought of something and looked up at me with bright eyes. "I'll wait for you to come back. Just let me know if you need anything." I didn't know how I got home. I sat quietly at home, looking blankly at each photo on the photo wall. When on earth did it happen? Lucas and I had been childhood friends for decades. We didn't start dating until we were in college. After graduating from college, we got married as our two families wished. He was a sports major and became a coach in a fitness institution after graduation. With his handsome face and muscular build, he always attracted a lot of women whenever he took off his clothes. When I first visited him at work, I would still get jealous. All the women around him were better looking and had better figures than me. He would comfort me, saying, "Our friendship can't be shaken by anyone." I promised to keep my distance and won't chat privately with the trainees except during working hours. I gradually trusted him. Moreover, I accidentally got this affair detection system. As long as he showed any signs of cheating, I could find out who the other person was. But I had never used it because of him before. Starting from helping close people catch cheaters at first to becoming quite famous later, I also began to handle bigger business and gradually went home less and paid less attention to him. At this time, Lucas opened the door and came back. He was startled when he saw me sitting in the living room. Then he pretended to be relaxed and touched his neck, put his keys and coat on the coat rack, and walked over to hug me. "Why are you back?" I didn't say anything and just let him hug me. I carefully smelled the laundry detergent on his clothes. It wasn't the lavender fragrance that we usually used at home. It was a fresh lemon scent. I frowned slightly, suppressed the nausea in my heart, hugged him back gently, and asked, "Did you change the laundry detergent yourself?" He loosened his embrace a little, looked flustered for a moment, and then pretended not to know and smelled his sleeve. "I've always been using the one you bought. Maybe I got some of a female trainee's perfume on me." After saying that, he affectionately rubbed my head and turned to walk towards the bedroom. I narrowed my eyes as I watched his back. I was sure that I hadn't smelled it wrong. Even though I seldom went home, I bought all the daily necessities at home. Generally, as long as it wasn't something particularly bad, I would always buy the same ones. But his answer didn't seem to have any loopholes. Under normal circumstances, I would have been fooled by him. However, before he came home, I had activated the system again and watched the follow-up of the two of them. They had a very exciting time. Later, they wore black stockings and coats and had sex in front of the French window. It was inevitable that some stains got on Lucas's clothes, so they simply put their clothes on the ground as a mat and had wild sex on the ground. After that, the lover saw that it was getting late and urged Lucas to go home. Lucas had no choice but to pat his lover's butt, took the clothes he had left there before, and left. As soon as he left, Amelia's husband Henry entered the door right after. I endured the annoyance in my heart and watched it all. I couldn't help sneering. "Lucas, do you know that you've become someone's mistress?" After washing up, I walked to the bed and lay down. Lucas was already lying on the bed, half asleep. Usually, he would urge me to go to bed, then come over, put his arm around my neck and sweetly call me honey, and pull me to make love regardless of my refusal. It wasn't like now, as if we were just two roommates sharing the same bed. Feeling that I had lain down, he subconsciously moved to the outer side, as if making space for me. Looking at the distance between us like the Milky Way in the middle, I pulled a cold smile at the corner of my mouth and casually said, "I'll be coming home more often recently." There was a moment of silence in the air, and he immediately woke up with a start. He looked towards me, with uncontrollable surprise in his tone. "Have you finished all your work? Don't worry about me when I'm at home alone. Are you jealous again, baby? I've been really good lately." As he said that, he moved closer to me, hesitated for a moment, then stretched out his hand to put his arm around my waist and rested his head on my shoulder. "I haven't seen you for a long time. I've missed you." "Really?" He seemed not to notice the annoyance in my tone. He raised his head, trying to find my lips and said, "Don't you trust me, baby?" I tilted my head back to avoid him. "I'm so tired." "No, I was just kidding. I have to go out tomorrow." After hearing that, he let out a heavy breath, loosened his arm around me, and turned to sleep on the inner side again. There was a sense of relief in his tone that he himself might not have noticed. "Go to bed early, baby." After saying that, the sound of even breathing came from beside me. I sneered and got up, walked to the study next door, took out my mobile phone and continued to retrieve the videos of the lover, and carefully took notes. This study was originally planned to be transformed into the baby's bedroom, but unexpectedly, instead of the baby, what came was cheating. Looking at the girl on the screen, I couldn't help sighing that this girl was really busy. Now she was having sex with Henry, in the same position as she did with Lucas. All through the night, I watched the emotional line of the lover during this period. I rubbed my sore eyes, stretched my stiff back and was ready to go out to find Amelia. Before going out, I still subconsciously opened the bedroom door to see if Lucas had gotten up. Usually, he would stay in bed and be late, and this had become my muscle memory. Seeing that there was no one on the bed, I couldn't help laughing at my own stupidity. I was still thinking about him at this time, but he didn't even notice that I hadn't come back to the room all night. A few tears involuntarily fell from the corners of my eyes. I reached out to wipe away the tears, sorted out my mood, and knocked on the door of Amelia's family. The one who opened the door was indeed a young and inexperienced boy. When he saw that it was me, he rubbed his messy hair and shyly stepped aside to let me in. I sat in the living room and looked at Amelia. As if she had received some signal, she said, "That was my younger brother William just now. He brought friends to our house to play games. Are you interested?" I shook my head. I couldn't be interested in other men at the moment, especially a male college student who looked so young. We quickly got to the point and exchanged the information we knew. This lover was actually a female college student named Sophia. She originally had a boyfriend who came from the countryside with her to study here. The two of them usually worked part-time in a hamburger shop. But because Sophia was vain and wasn't content with earning so little money, she went to work in a nightclub on the introduction of her friends and accidentally got to know Henry. Later, Henry offered to keep her and gave her the villa under his name to live in. That was the place I saw in the video yesterday. Sophia had an outstanding appearance herself. In order to keep in better shape, she would go to the gym to find a personal trainer from time to time. At this time, she was attracted by Lucas, who was full of hormones. After going back and forth a few times, they had an affair. When Henry wasn't there, Lucas was always by her side. Of course, Lucas didn't know all of this. Just after saying these things, William came out. He leaned against the sofa and curled his lips. Are you talking about Sophia? She's a famous innocent beauty in our school. Many people chased after her but were all rejected because she had a boyfriend. She seemed to be a child bride. Everyone thought she was loyal. I thought she was slutty at that time. She tried to seduce me overtly and covertly. Sure enough, my judgment was right. Amelia and I immediately looked at each other when we heard this sentence. We didn't expect that her persona and reputation in school were so good, but there were still times when she messed up. We then pulled William and asked him a lot of details. After locking down the hamburger shop where she worked, we immediately dressed up, ordered food and sat in the corner to observe her. Seeing Sophia in person, I couldn't help but sigh that she really had the charm to be involved with three people at the same time. Her proud breasts, innocent face, bright eyes and long beautiful legs. But none of these were reasons for her to cheat on married men. Especially with two of them. We were still observing the busy Sophia when Lucas walked in. I subconsciously lowered my head and raised my hand to look at my watch. It was lunchtime, and he could still find time to meet Sophia. Usually at this time, he would take this time to make a video call to me and be affectionate with me for a few minutes and refuse to hang up. Only now did I realize that we hadn't made a video call for a long time. I didn't dare to look up for fear of being recognized, but I still couldn't help being curious to observe. Sophia's boyfriend Marcus was clearly frying chicken legs in the kitchen at the back, but she was openly flirting with Lucas at the cash register. Their hands touched each other from time to time on the cash register, and Lucas's hand also inadvertently touched Sophia's face. Everything was so harmonious, and they looked like a shy young couple who had just fallen in love. My face gradually turned cold. This was a greater impact than what I saw through the screen on my mobile phone. I was originally about to leave, but at this time William swaggered in. We hurriedly took our cokes and hid behind them like thieves, shrinking our bodies down, for fear that he would greet us. However, he looked inside and immediately spotted Amelia and me. He excitedly waved his arms. Sister. Sister Diana, you are really here. At this time, 3 pairs of eyes looked towards us. Chapter 2. I helplessly pulled the corners of my mouth and greeted Lucas behind William. What a coincidence. You're here too. Lucas didn't expect that I would be here. His eyes involuntarily fluttered around, his lips tightened, and the smile on his face froze for a moment. He started walking towards me in an unnatural manner. When he saw Amelia beside me, he visibly relaxed and greeted me. Is this your new client? What are you guys doing here? I smiled in response to his question, tilted my head to look at Sophia behind him, and said meaningfully, of course, we're here to collect evidence. He didn't turn around to look but made an excuse to slip away. At this time, Sophia walked over, stood beside Lucas, looked me up and down, and then moved closer to him. There was a flirtatious tone in her voice. Lucas, is this your wife? As she spoke, there was disdain in her eyes. She covered her mouth with her hand and put her arm on his shoulder, laughing. Why is Lucas so busy taking care of us trainees that he doesn't even care about his own wife? I lowered my head and looked at my protruding belly and thick thighs. It was true that I had lost my figure over the years, but what right did she have to talk about me like that? Lucas pulled away from her a little with an unhappy look on his face and was just about to say something. Sophia moved closer again. Lucas, don't be shy. Appreciating beautiful women is human nature, isn't it? After all, sister stays at home every day without taking care of herself. She doesn't even put on makeup. It's easy to get tired of her. As she said that, she looked at me provocatively. Sister, I think you should also exercise more and improve yourself. You shouldn't revolve around Lucas at home. After all, you might be abandoned one day. I nodded in agreement with her words, but then changed the topic and looked at her sharply. You're right, but as long as one is healthy, it's not necessary to agree with your aesthetics. I guess you must have a serious beauty anxiety and need to drag married men along to find a sense of existence. Amelia beside me also stood up, took my arm, glanced at Sophia whose face had turned as red as a pig's liver, and there was a look of disdain on her face. I remember I came to a hamburger shop, not a tea house. How come there's the smell of gossip here, and even a bit of a slutty smell? Is it that the chicken in your shop hasn't been deodorized? I just watched Sophia clench her hands tightly. At this time, her boyfriend also walked out and looked at us with a puzzled expression. Amelia looked at the simple boyfriend who was wearing a washed-out white shirt, frowned slightly, then turned to Sophia. I think you should care more about your own boyfriend instead of other people's husbands. Look at what you're wearing, the jewelry around your neck, and that bag at the cash register. Isn't it a Chanel? They're all fakes. She started shaking her head halfway through her sentence and made a tut-tut sound. Anyone who heard this would be so angry that they'd have a heart attack and leave this troublesome place. Sure enough, Sophia was no ordinary person. Her chest just started heaving violently, and tears welled up in her eyes. She wiped her tears while lying in Lucas's arms, completely ignoring the fact that I, the legitimate wife, and her boyfriend were present. Lucas looked at me with dissatisfaction on his face, patting Sophia's back from time to comfort her. Diana, she's still a young girl. How could you guys bully her together and say such mean things to hurt her self-esteem? Don't you trust me? Hurry up and apologize to Sophia. Hearing his words, I was so angry that my hands were shaking behind my back. My face turned a little cold, and I narrowed my eyes to look at Lucas. I was just about to refute. At this time, William walked behind me, patted my hand, gave me a warm smile, and then looked up at Sophia in his arms with a sarcastic expression. It's really true that there are all kinds of birds in the forest. It's the first time I've seen a situation where the legitimate wife is asked to apologize to a vixen. People who don't know would think that you two are a couple. Hearing this, Lucas also felt that he had gone too far and looked at me unhappily. Diana, you really disappoint me. With that, he left with Sophia, and Marcus, not knowing what was going on, still followed them out. After this farce today, Amelia also said that she had seen clearly and was ready to go home and start persuading her parents to investigate and file for divorce. I also followed her to make the subsequent evidence legitimate. After all the evidence I took out came from the system, and anyone would think it was obtained through improper means like secret filming. I lay in the guest room of Amelia's house. Amelia knocked on the door and came in, handing me a glass of milk to comfort me. I smiled and shook my head. In fact, we were both in the same boat. Lucas didn't ask me all night why I didn't go home. Usually, he would call to ask about my situation and whether I needed him to pick me up. Amelia noticed my irritability and asked me to continue watching what happened next between them so that I could get over it. I also wanted to watch it, to see how my husband comforted other women. Lucas didn't surprise us. He chased after them, and after some tugging, they started hugging and cuddling again. And Marcus went out and followed them for a few steps. Seeing that they were already out of sight, he went back to the hamburger shop to continue working. Lucas bought a necklace at some point, but I recognized it at a glance. It was a necklace that I liked very much and had always been reluctant to buy. I still remembered that we got married not long after graduation. At that time, we didn't have much money, but I took a fancy to a necklace. Every time I passed by a jewelry store, I would take a look at it and vowed to work hard to earn enough money to buy it. Lucas noticed my liking, put his arm around my waist and took out another cheaper necklace. I still couldn't put it down. I asked him to put it on for me and then admired it carefully. I was extremely surprised at that time and excitedly kissed his lips, saying that he was so nice to me. He ran his hand through my hair and looked at me affectionately. When we have money, I'll buy you a nicer one, the one you like the most. Now that we have money and can afford that necklace, it's on another woman's neck. Watching Lucas solemnly put the necklace on Sophia's neck, she proudly put her arm around his neck, pouted and asked, "This isn't fake, is it? Only I can spend your money." He smiled and tapped Sophia's nose. Of course it's real. With that, they rolled onto the bed again. But I didn't feel heartbroken. Maybe after feeling too much pain, it doesn't hurt anymore. While Lucas was taking a shower, Sophia received a phone call and immediately urged him to leave. The scene changed, and Henry came back. Sophia used the same trick, crying and whining, complaining that all the things she bought were fakes and that she had been ridiculed by her classmates. She coaxed Henry into buying bags worth hundreds of thousands of yuan and then asked for hundreds of thousands of yuan as pocket money. I turned my head to look at Amelia, who was resting her chin on her hand. How can you be so indifferent when your husband is like this? She blinked her eyes and looked at me with a confused expression. What expression should I have? It's not my money being spent. Our marriage is just a business arrangement. I have no feelings for him. I just want to divorce him. But you two have had such a long relationship. I took a sip of milk and looked out at the pitch-dark night outside the window. Actually, I don't feel much either. I'll go back and file for divorce now. As I said that, I lowered my head to think about countermeasures. Seeing that it was about time, I also got up and went home. As soon as I got home and sat down, Lucas walked in carrying my favorite pickled fish with Chinese sauerkraut. He put the dish on the table, told me to eat it while it was hot, then turned around and walked into the bathroom, not mentioning anything about what had happened during the day at all. I watched the pickled fish turn cold, then threw it into the toilet, pressed the flush button, and watched it being flushed away with a blank expression. It seemed that I could also flush away this terrible marriage like this. I opened the bedroom door, and as expected, he had already fallen asleep. I walked to the sofa, picked up his clothes. I felt around in the pockets of his clothes bit by bit with my hands. Sure enough, I quickly found a lipstick. Because when I was watching the video, I had noticed that Sophia stuffed something into his clothes while he was taking a shower. I smiled as I twirled the lipstick and saw that it was the exact shade Sophia had worn today. I couldn't help sneering. This little girl really can't control her temper. She's declaring war on me like this. Then I turned around, opened the drawer, took out a condom of a brand that Lucas had never used before, and put it in. You two must use the gift I've prepared for you personally. Don't let a child suddenly pop up and cause confusion about who the parents are. After doing all this, I folded his clothes and put them back in their original place to prevent them from accidentally falling down. I then went to the study next door and started drafting the divorce agreement. Actually, during the years when I helped others catch cheaters, I had already grasped a lot of legal knowledge and the ability to draft contracts. Drawing up a divorce agreement was a piece of cake for me. After finishing writing it, I put it on the table and unconsciously twirled a pen in my hand. I then thought of the excited expression on his face when he proposed to me, saying that he would love me for a lifetime. It had only been a short year, and I couldn't help sneering. Lucas, you will pay the price for your actions. Another morning came, and I went to Amelia's family's place to watch the video. Sure enough, I saw Sophia take out a condom from her pocket. She put her hands on her hips, shook the condom in her hand, and questioned Lucas, "Did you sleep with that ugly and fat woman? How could you stand her greasy look?" Lucas denied it with a flattering look on his face. "Since I've been with you, I don't even want to touch her anymore." Then he took the condom from her hand. Maybe it was left by her before. "Don't be angry, okay? You're the only one in my eyes. Don't you understand?" Only then did Sophia's expression soften. She sat on the chair, stretched out her legs, and hooked his crotch with her toes. His face turned bright red, and he pounced on Sophia. "You're such a clingy little vixen." I pinched my own face and watched the two people in front of me expressionlessly before turning off my phone. William beside me noticed my disappointment and immediately took my hand and pulled me outside. I broke free in surprise. "What are you doing?" He then showed a youthful smile. "I need a running partner. Will you accompany me?" At this time, Amelia walked out with sleepy eyes, looked at us who were tugging at each other, and smiled like an auntie. "Diana, go quickly. Seize the opportunity." With that, she turned around and went back into the bedroom. I half-heartedly followed William and started our morning running journey. He also made a strict diet plan for me halfway through and supervised me to eat and train every day. We gradually became familiar with each other and started joking around. Before long, Amelia had already obtained her parents' consent for the divorce, and all that was left was to go through the formal procedures. Actually, before this, Amelia had already known that Henry was planning to buy a large flat for Sophia, but Henry was restricted by his family and couldn't come up with so much money. He had no choice but to secretly use Amelia's dowry to make up for it. Amelia was about to check her dowry soon. You know, in such wealthy families, using the wife's dowry was a very shameful thing. Henry, of course, knew this very well. He said to wait a while and then reduce the alimony for Amelia. But Amelia was used to a luxurious life. Suddenly, the sharp reduction in her consumption was unbearable for her, and she started arguing with Henry. During this period, under the double pressure from Sophia and his family, Henry was preparing to go to the neighboring city to hide for a while. Sophia couldn't find her sugar daddy and completely lost her major source of income. She immediately turned to look at Lucas. During the years of marriage with Lucas, the money was basically managed by me, just because we were preparing to use it for having children in the future. But I knew that he had some private savings, although there wouldn't be a huge amount. With Sophia spending money so quickly, Lucas soon couldn't bear it and turned to me to borrow money. When I saw this, I was already lying on a lounge chair by the seaside, and Amelia and William beside me were raising their wine glasses to me. We were celebrating our initial victory. Lucas called me like crazy. One message after another popped up on my phone. Diana, stop making a fuss, okay? It's been many days. Haven't you calmed down yet? Your dear husband is going to have no money for food. Are you really so heartless? Baby, when are you coming back? I miss you. We haven't seen each other for a long time. Looking at the last message, I frowned in disgust and immediately replied, go to the study now. There's a contract on the table. Sign it first. It had been so many days, and he hadn't even stepped into the study once. It seemed that I had overestimated him. A few minutes later, he called me again, with an angry tone. Diana, what do you mean? You want a divorce? You're actually filing for divorce just because of this little thing. Come back now, and I'll pretend that nothing has happened and won't tell your parents. Is he still trying to morally kidnap me with my parents now? I immediately hung up the phone. I had already informed my parents that I was going to divorce Lucas. And I told them the reason for the divorce, that he had an affair with a female college student. My parents remained silent and just told me to enjoy myself, eat well and have fun, and not to worry about other things. Previously, my parents' health was not good, and I was studying in another city. Thanks to Lucas's parents taking care of them, out of gratitude for this kindness, I had tolerated a lot of things, including the betrothal gifts that we had discussed before. In the end, I didn't ask for a penny, and I would send them big gifts during festivals. Every time I went to his home, I would be criticized by his relatives for all kinds of shortcomings. They would say that their son could find a wealthy woman and that I was getting a good deal and so on. But now I understand that if you keep tolerating, others will only become more and more excessive. In the evening, there was a bonfire party on the beach. I was in a great mood and took a lot of pictures. When Lucas saw this at that time, he called me crazily and questioned me whether I was having an affair. He asked why I went to the beach alone instead of lending him money. William saw this and smiled faintly. He called Lucas back. Lucas, right? I advise you to divorce Sister Diana quickly. You're so blind. There are many people waiting to court Sister Diana. After saying that, without giving the other side a chance, he immediately hung up the phone. Then he turned around and smiled as he looked at me, who was already stunned. I was a bit at a loss under his gaze. Fortunately, someone called me at this time, and I quickly ran away with a flushed face. Maybe he just wanted to help me. After all, with his status, he could have better choices. Everyone started to play the game of truth or dare in a circle. I sat aside and watched them play. When a couple asked each other whether they had cheated, I subconsciously activated my system. After all, directly asking each other such exciting things requires that both parties have had such experiences or have excessive trust in each other. Well, sure enough, both of them had cheated. The boy had an affair with the girl's best friend. But the boy shook his head to deny it, while the girl nodded. The boy looked at the girl angrily, and the girl had no choice but to shake her head helplessly and drink some wine. In the end, the two broke up unhappily, and only the girl was left drinking alone. I held a wine glass and sat beside her, clinked glasses with her, softly said the name of her best friend, and told her to pay attention to several aspects. I thought she should understand what I meant when I said that. She was shocked at first, then lowered her head, smiled knowingly, thanked me and left. William also looked at me in surprise. You don't even know them. How do you know so many things? I always thought you were just a detective. I looked at him and his image started to double. I slid my finger on his chest, because sister can read minds. He looked at me disbelievingly, then narrowed his eyes slightly and smiled with the corners of his mouth curled up, then read my mind now and see who I like. I pretended to be mysterious and shook my head, stood up straight. Sister doesn't want to read a kid's mind. Actually, his excited face had already revealed the answer. But I couldn't believe it. I just wanted to escape. Soon, the divorce judgment for Amelia came down. Henry had to return to Amelia's family. When I learned that Amelia had deliberately invited Sophia, I also casually called Lucas over. You know, for such a wonderful scene, if he, the fourth party, wasn't present, I would be to blame. There were 6 people present, plus William and Marcus, Sophia's boyfriend who she brought along because she was afraid. Everyone sat on the sofas respectively, and each person had different expressions. Especially Sophia, her face was really colorful. Amelia looked at them with satisfaction and started the conversation for this drama. Sophia, tell us, what's your relationship with my husband? Do you want to return the gifts that were bought with my money? She looked at Henry who was sitting on the sofa with a frown and didn't say a word, then turned around and looked at Lucas whose face was ashen, and took a deep breath. None of you will speak. Do you want me to say it? I just wanted to have an equal relationship with you in love. You didn't lose out either. Marcus, the most honest one beside them, spoke first. My Sophia must have been deceived by you guys. She's so innocent. Then he ran to Henry and pulled his collar vigorously. Speak up quickly. You gave those things voluntarily. You deceived my Sophia. Henry was already annoyed. With a wave of his big hand, Marcus crashed into the coffee table. He stood up and straightened his collar. Then he turned around and reached out to pinch Sophia's neck. How many men did you hook up with at the same time? Is this how you use the money I gave you? Sophia's face turned red because of lack of oxygen. Let me explain, Henry. At this time, Lucas also came to his senses and walked over and slapped Sophia. Didn't you say I was the only one? As he said that, when he saw the necklace on her neck, his pupils shrank and he yanked it off vigorously. You don't deserve to wear the gift that I was going to give to Diana. After saying that, he turned around and was about to put the necklace on me. At this time, William blocked in front of me. He looked at me sincerely through the gap between William's arms. I just felt disgusted. The scene was in chaos. Amelia and her younger brother and I slipped away quickly. Before I got home, Lucas called me eagerly, asking me what I wanted to eat and saying that he happened to be passing by and could bring it back for me. I refused everything and hoped that he would go home quickly. He put the pickled fish with Chinese sauerkraut that I loved the most and some fried skewers on the table and was about to hug me. I dodged quickly. I sat at a distance far away from him and looked at the bruises on his face. One could imagine how fierce the situation was at that time. He didn't take it seriously. He took out the dirty necklace from his pocket, held it up and said to me, "Look, this is the one you like the most. I bought it back for you." I smiled and took it, then casually threw it into the trash can. I took out the new divorce agreement. Remember to sign this. Let's part on good terms. He then held my hand and was about to kneel down to me. Diana, for the sake of our years of friendship, forgive me this time. I didn't answer him. I broke free from his hand. Before going out the door, I still said, since you started cheating, there's no turning back for us. I've also told my parents. Don't make it too ugly in the end. Walking on the street, I didn't know where to go. But I saw William on a bench. He seemed to be waiting for me. When I walked behind him, he immediately turned around and greeted me. I didn't stand on ceremony and sat beside him. He looked at the moonlight on the horizon and asked me casually, "If you get divorced, will I have a chance?" Hearing his words, my heart skipped a beat. During these days, he had accompanied me diligently in losing weight, and there had been significant results. Besides, he always stood up for me in everything. Under normal circumstances, I would definitely have agreed, but I was still in the period of dealing with my marriage. If I agreed now, then I would be having an emotional affair, and what would be the difference between me and Lucas? I shook my head and refused. As if he had expected it, he jumped and squatted on the chair, picked up a pebble from somewhere and threw it into the distance. We have plenty of time ahead, Diana. This was the first time he had called my full name directly. Before this matter was over, another incident quickly fermented on the internet. Marcus didn't believe that his girlfriend would do such things. Coupled with the lack of financial support from Henry and Lucas, their happiness index was extremely low. You know, it's hard to go from luxury to frugality, so he went to Amelia's family every day to demand an explanation on this pretext. Amelia's family chose to close their doors and not see him and hired people to remove the hot search topics. They thought that such a person couldn't cause any big waves. Later, Marcus somehow started recording the screen and editing it, claiming that Amelia and I couldn't bear Sophia's beauty and used our capital to threaten Sophia to do such things. The purpose was to seduce our own husbands and share their property. If it were just Amelia's family, I might have believed it, but it happened to involve ordinary working people like us. I couldn't help laughing when I read the news. Could it be that Lucas hired online trolls to praise himself? I quietly watched the trend on the internet, recorded all the comments, forwarded them, and took screenshots of the accounts that insulted me to keep as evidence. Later, according to the cheating scenes I saw on the system, I found clothing stores, jewelry stores, and other shops and asked for their surveillance videos. In front of each store, there were scenes of Sophia flirting with different men and also the consumption records. I posted these on the internet and handed the evidence over to the police for handling. At this time, Amelia's family also quickly came forward to announce Amelia's divorce from Henry. The reason was that Henry had an affair in China and misappropriated public funds to buy a house for Sophia. Henry's family knew that they couldn't protect Henry, so they sent him to the police station and put forward another person as the heir. At the same time, regardless of my parents' change of mind, I also announced my divorce from Lucas. He still made an affectionate confession to me during a live broadcast, asking me to give him another chance, saying that he had just made a mistake that all men would make. The wealthy women I had helped all shouted, asking me to be their sister-in-law. Netizens began to sigh with regret, and Lucas's video was flooded by netizens. For a while, the focus on the internet also turned to Marcus, saying that he was a lovesick fool and had a serious delusion syndrome as he came from the countryside. At the same time, people in the know at school dug out screenshots of Sophia asking others everywhere whether they could keep her. Sophia was a child bride in Marcus's family and had slept with Marcus's relatives since childhood. Seeing these things, Marcus went crazy, cursing and swearing, completely unable to believe that his perfect goddess in his heart was like this. But he just cursed on the internet. I thought this matter was over, but an accident happened when I was shopping with Amelia and her brother. While we were shopping, suddenly a dark figure rushed out from behind a row of clothes. That person had a ferocious face and stabbed at me with a shining dagger. William reacted quickly and pushed me away, blocking the knife for me. This person was the already crazy Marcus. When he was being taken away by the police, he was still cursing us. Diana, you're just jealous of Sophia's beauty and slandered my Sophia. You bitch will die a horrible death. However, I didn't have time to care about so much because William was bleeding profusely. At the moment before entering the operating room, he still held my hand and looked at me affectionately. Diana, if I come out of this alive, can you be my girlfriend? I couldn't care about anything else. I followed my heart, nodded hurriedly while crying, don't say such unlucky words. You will definitely survive. Of course I'm willing. Saying that, he smiled with satisfaction and closed his eyes. Amelia beside us seemed like an outsider, looking at us with an auntie-like smile, as if she thought we were so cute together. Later, I learned that William wasn't seriously injured and that he had just pretended. But the fact that he thought of me first in a critical moment still touched me deeply, and we got together as we wished. The wealthy women from various families all felt sorry that they couldn't become in-laws with me, but they still sent us big gifts to bless us. Looking at the gifts piled up at the door, I suddenly thought of something. I pulled William's arm and looked at him with pleading eyes. He rubbed my head. Just tell me what you want to say. Then I told him my idea. I wanted to exchange all these gifts for money and use it to set up a foundation to help those women whose marriages had broken down and let them regain hope in life. After hearing this, William hugged my waist tightly and then kissed me on the lips. "I'll do whatever sister says." After saying that, I was still about to pull Amelia to carry out the next plan, but he picked me up in his arms and walked towards the house. I bashfully pounded on his shoulder. "What are you doing?" He kissed my forehead, taking care of important business. After that, I used the system to detect affairs and help those men and women who were trapped in difficult situations due to domestic violence, abuse, and being cheated on by their partners get out of trouble. With the financial support of Amelia's family, a volunteer team was formed. I helped Amelia's family enhance their reputation, and my own social status also rose significantly. I became a well-known relationship expert. During an invited interview, I saw a streetwalker on the roadside. She was dressed in rags and wore gaudy makeup. Her eyes were numb as she looked at me, and then she quickly walked into the alley beside her. I couldn't help but look at her a few more times before quickly looking away. That girl was exactly Sophia. Through the TV station, I also learned that Lucas had been complained about by multiple clients and left the gym. He was strong but had no other skills. Now he had been reduced to working as a bricklayer. Abandoned by the proud Lucas family, he lived a frugal life. Later, he was blackmailed by Marcus and became mentally deranged. The host now held the microphone and asked me, "Nowadays, Ms. Diana has achieved great success. Who do you want to thank the most?" I looked at William, who was looking at me intently in the audience. I pursed my lips and smiled. "I'm most grateful to Mr. William, who urged me to lose weight and is now my husband. And I'm also thankful to Sister Amelia for her help, as well as all the other wealthy sisters. I love you all." As I said that, I blew a kiss to the front of the TV camera, and then took the microphone and said solemnly, "I'm even more grateful to our country for giving me this opportunity and bringing so many bad guys to justice." After saying that, I ran off the stage and hugged William tightly. He also hugged me back vigorously. The whole audience burst into thunderous applause.